Okay. So we're reviewing a test that was given the first week of semester. And it's a jury charge. And it begins with, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and this is the way we just discussed, the colon or the comma. Let's go down to, and then let's go down to why we wouldn't have one here. I wish to thank each of you for your courteous attention to all of the witnesses. We don't have a comma there, and I'm just going to help you with this rule. And a lot of you know some of these rules already. I want you to find a reference point. When you know you're going to have a comma, it's two independent clauses. Independent clauses specifically mean they can stand alone, like I'm going to go, you know, too specific. But if you don't, you wouldn't have a comma. And then you can also omit the comma in short sentences connected by and. That's just another one. But let's look at this one. I wish to thank each of you for your courteous attention to all of the witnesses and to, okay, if you didn't have anything there, is that an independent sentence? No. It doesn't have a subject and a verb. And that's why you know you don't need the comma. Okay? So what he's wishing to do is to thank them, and I wish to also thank you for this. Okay? So no comma. Now that, on this one, we had a few that had now comma. Let's look at page 53. That would be of number 8. Oh, and I'd like you just, you know, if you want to highlight, if you want to mark this, but see, this is number 8, proofreading on punctuation. Words, phrases, and clauses that introduce a sentence are set off by a comma. Use a comma after introductory words such as yes, no, well, briefly, accordingly. You see, aren't they familiar now? Actually, now, we've been working with these, right, guys? So you would have the comma. And of course, we went over yes, comma, this is the person I saw briefly. So that's one of the rules. Now, this is the importance of putting your punctuation when you're writing. If the attorney said, now, I want to tell you, you know you're gonna try and put your comma there. But the sentence was read, now that you have, see how there's no pause, it's not one of these introductory. So that's why you want to not have the comma there. Counsel, make sure you have good ways to write counsel, S-E-L-C-I-L. Would you capitalize it? Doesn't hurt. I mean, you know, plaintiff, defendant, you'll see rules in here that say you don't really have to. You know, the court you do, but you don't have to. But you want to be consistent on what you're doing. And, I mean, I think always when I had plaintiff, when I had defendant, I just always capitalized it. And, the counsel, especially if they're already talking about them in court, doesn't hurt to capitalize it. It becomes my duty to give you the instructions of the court. Okay, let's find that rule because I saw some on there that said court is. So if you go to page 25, let's see if you have that. You might not have that one. I don't think I gave you this one on number 4, but this is probably the most. And here's this court participants. Okay, capitalize the words court and your honor. You see how there's not a capital U? But I think you're going to see different you're going to see inconsistencies. Just be consistent for you.
You can capitalize.
You can on why? Yeah. But capitalize court. And here it says right here also capital your honor when referring to the judge. Okay. And you know, you've learned that there are times when you don't need to capitalize it when they're just talking about a court in general. But he's talking specifically about himself. And see how it says capitalize court officers, juror, the people, district attorney. Here it says do not capitalize. This is the discrepancy. You can, and I've seen it. I think I want to say like 80% of the time. I mean, I did it 100% of the time, but it doesn't matter. You can. There's nothing wrong with it. Just be consistent. Plaintiff, defendant, jury, members of the jury. They just kind of stood out a little better, okay? So that's your rule on court. Okay, let's put this one to bed. I think we've talked about this maybe 2 or 3 times, okay? So, is it okay or is it not? As long as you're consistent, but let's see, why would you maybe not do it? It is your duty as jurors.
I think
Remember this one? I'm sorry?
I was just going to say, I think no commas because you need those
See, that's a
The
good
central
point.
part of the sentence.
That's a good point. So, let's look at the rules and see what you think, and just be consistent, because it's like half and half on the papers that we saw. This is on the reporter on the job, volume 3. And if you go to page 5, oh, page, you go to number K. Commas are used to set up non-restrictive modifiers. Modifies non-essential to identifying the person or thing modified from the rest of the sentence. The conductor. That's just one rule. Look at 37. That might be in your number 6. See, I can't find a real good rule for that, but here's this one that says, do not, so the one we just said, use a comma if you don't really need it. You, as a juror, they know the charge of the court is being read, the jury knows they're being spoken to. That's why it could be non-restricted, because you don't need it, because they already know, you, as jurors. That could be a rule. And then this one says, do not use a comma with restrictive appositives, words that are necessary to the meaning of the sentence. So, that could be you as jurors, okay? So just be consistent. I think I would go with you, comma, as jurors, comma, and you can ask other reporters what they want to do. But don't be counted, what I'm trying to say is don't be counted wrong for it. Okay, on your papers, you want to make sure that, and of course you wouldn't get that as an error necessarily towards the CSR, but you might hear on half a point, because I know we charge half a point for punctuation. Those half a points add up. Okay? So you want to be real careful on what your papers are doing when you're very close. Or anytime actually. Okay, so do you see the point there? Okay? Okay, it is your duty as jurors to follow the law as stated in the instructions of the court. We went over why you would have a capital court. Here's another comma. You don't need it. The rules we just went over, are these 2 independent clauses? No, right? You don't have a complete sentence of subject and verb, so you don't need the comma there. Okay? And to apply the rules of law so given to the facts as you find them from the evidence in this case.
You put all those comments in bold. I don't know if you corrected them.
I didn't correct them.
Oh.
I didn't do any correction. That's what I'm trying to say. Originally, the point was it's divided by 3 instructors. They're all going to correct them. But you know what we have to do as instructors? We have to get one good copy of punctuation and grade it accordingly. So when I started doing this, because I was doing your must, like I said, we had the weeks when we weren't here, and when I was doing this, I said, So I would see the inconsistencies, but there's no way I can go and correct everybody's correction. That's not the way it works. So that's something that was an easy fix, but we'll get a good copy. That's what we're going to work from. But you know how some of y'all have asked, I just want to see the hard copy and I want to test it against myself. Don't penalize yourself, because a hard copy 75% of the time is not correct, and it could be errors that are going to count against you. Okay? It's an easy fix. We can get this fixed. But what I was doing, I said, everything we've learned, I don't want you to unlearn it, because we've gone over this stuff already. So, and no, it's no reflection on everybody. It's just something that is we can get it done. Okay. You are not to single out one instruction alone. Okay, we're in agreement on that one, right? That we don't need it. You are not to single out one instruction alone as stated in the law. Okay, let's see what happens with that comma. But must consider the instruction as a whole. This is the same rule with the and. Go back to your page 47. I believe it was number 7. Or was it number 8? Number 7. Okay. Coordinating conjunctions. Place a comma before a conjunction that joins 2 independent clauses. And, but, or, and nor are coordinating conjunctions. That's what you want to write down. You want to remember. If you're having trouble with any commas, write these down. They may or may not take a comma. comma, so it's not always the rule, it's always a comma before the but, always a comma before and. If it's two independent clauses where it can stand alone, that you use that comma, okay? So that was one rule, so you see it was for and but, and then the other one was, right here. And I'm sorry, this one is your reporter on the job, okay? Okay. A comma is used to separate two main clauses in a compound sentence. And this is pretty cool. In a short compound sentence, a comma is optional. Keep that word open. Your commas are optional. Okay? She wanted to buy the Oriental rug. You need the comma. You see the whole sentence, you got the subject and the verb, but it was definitely too expensive. The restaurant we went to last night was quite lavish, comma, and the price is complete sentences versus what you just did. So what happens here? Do you need one? Read it. Do you need one? You are not to single out one instruction alone as stating the law, but must consider the instructions as a whole. Hands up if you think you need one. Good. You don't need one. Do you see why? Unless it said, but you must consider, you can put a comment in it.
And Helen, what about paragraphs? I mean, like,
Yeah.
I paragraph this one completely different than what, so I mean, how strict are they, or how does that?
They're not strict. Like even when we went through all the musts, you know, obviously we didn't count off in paragraphs because there's no way. It's just the way you're going to, see the flow. But I'm hoping some of y'all might have this, and we didn't go into it in depth. But I think this was from Punctuation for Court Reporters, NCRA, and this one was chapter 14. Okay? And it has a whole, but see how it's real thick and dense, but it's a whole packet. I think we gave it out. If you didn't get one, let us know. And it talks about so many lines, depending on the subjects and subsets within the subjects. And it gives some pretty good answers to it. I mean, it's like it's real thick. That's a little. You're not going to get counted off on paragraphs, but I noticed that all the paragraph marks were up. That on y'all's test grades, you know, they would put the paragraph marks where they belong, but that's still a judgment call. And it also depends on how you read it, how it was being read. What you definitely don't want is a whole deal. I want to tell you the jury charges from the court. I mean, the jury charges, you know, after each trial, they're very lengthy. They're very lengthy. I don't know if they're done that way to confuse the jury. You got to remember, there's a jury that's going to weigh this, and those jury charges. Ask your mentor to give you a copy of a jury charge. It's thick, it's long, it's paragraphs, it's bulky. You know, sometimes it's one sentence is a whole paragraph. So they have a lot here, you know, divided up, and I don't think these are correct, but we just don't want you to be counted off wrong. I don't know if that even answered your question.
Well, then again, it's fluid. So
yes.
Okay.
Yes, and there's some material that you can read to kind of help yourself, but it is, again, on subject, changing subject, of course. If not, if it's too deep, then you have to find a good cutoff point. And I think, Grant, you talked about so many lines. You know, there's just a lot of different rules on there.
A paragraph can be only one sentence.
I don't think so.
I don't either, but that one.
That's what I'm saying. This is not correct. See right here, guys? See what my note said? Paragraphing rules. So thank you for bringing that up. Even an attorney, think about it. An attorney's paying, you know, good money for a page. You think they're going to want to see paragraphs? That's going to add up on a 2,000-page transcript. So you, as a reporter, it's okay to make them bulky. Find yourself a really good jury charge. Even some of the ones that we give are, so maybe those jury charge books, I don't know if that would be in there or not, but find a good jury charge and use that as a boilerplate for you, because it is pretty consistent. Neither are you to be concerned with the wisdom of any rule of law stated by the court. Okay, let's look at this one. We got all kinds of things on this one. The importance of your punctuation. Okay, let's read this one together. See, and this one for sure would need to go over here because, you know, you're not to single out one instruction alone stating the law, but must consider the instruction as a whole. Bring it up there. I mean, it's still talking about the same topic, okay? Neither are you to be concerned with the wisdom of any rule of law stated by the court. We had some that put commas, so it would have said, by the court, comma, regardless of any opinion you may have as to what the law ought to be, period. It would be a violation of your sworn duty to base a verdict upon any other view of the law than that given in the instructions of the court. Do you see how you can't make it up when if your punctuation's not there. It went both ways. It might have been the way they dictated it, maybe the way it was dictated. This one makes sense here. I'm just making a note that it's important to punctuate. Would you put a comma here? If you say you put the period here. Neither are you to be concerned with the wisdom of any rule of law stated by the court, regardless of any opinion you may have. Isn't it still part of it, right? So nothing. So if you had a comma there, you want to mark it off. It should be it. Okay. These jury charges can be a real challenge. When you're taking a test, and I just want to remind you about this, when you are taking a test, forget these rules. When you're taking your performance challenges, we just want you to write. Don't think about, is it a capital, is it a number, is it a zero, is it an ordinal, is it a cardinal? Don't do that. Don't hesitate on your test day, on your challenge performance. Okay? And thank you, Nora, for bringing that to my attention because, you know, I think she was right there. She said, oh, but I didn't know if it was written down. I said, no, don't even think about these rules. Don't think about where you're going to put something if it's capitalized or anything. Just write. Make sure you put your punctuation if possible because it's going to help you. Make sure you got that Q&A in there. I think we say that all the time, but I still see a little bit of that. I still see a little bit of that and I go, ah! Okay, let's read this one sentence here. Also, it would be a violation of your sworn duty as judges of the facts. Would you use a comma there? So it doesn't make sense to have one. Okay, it's not something that's non-restrictive because it's important. Also, it would be a violation of your sworn duty as judges of the facts to base. So let's look at page 37, which again I think is one that we just, maybe on number 6. So positives again. So if you take away anything from this class, you get your positives and your coordinated conjunctions, your separate independent clauses that will help you. Again, do not use a comma with restrictive clauses, words that are necessary to the meaning of the sentence. Same thing we talked about with as jurors, you as jurors, but this is more important. Okay?
That's not in the positive.
It's not in the positive. That's why I say you don't need the commas there.